Hello. Well, thanks for coming in, man.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it was sick.
Is it?
Happy to be here.
Hasn't even started yet. How do you know it's sick? Don't get too
assumptions, dude.
Yeah, I don't like that confidence at all.
Confident man.
Let's see if we can change that by the end of this.
Yeah. Break me down.
Yeah, introduce yourself.
My name's Cugi. Zach, but I go by Cugi. I'm a recording engineer and producer. I make a lot of like pop stuff, R&B, hip hop, and also a lot of house music and electronic music. And I just started putting out music back in July. Put out my first track. And
What are you talking about? You put out a whole project.
I mean, I put out an EP. Yeah.
Yeah, what are you talking about? My first
And I've been
track.
stoked on it, honestly. It's been received really well, and like I'm really happy with the reception and everything. And
Yeah.
it's crazy too, because like that's kind of how I got into production. Like I started off as an engineer before that, which is kind of an old school mentality. Usually nowadays people are like start as producer and then like, oh, I have these beats, you want to get on it, and then they learn how to engineer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started as an engineer and then started learning how to make like electronic music in Ableton, and kind of just got obsessed with it and kind of put it on the back burner for a while, where I was like working at a studio and, you know, mostly focusing on engineering. But all these people around me were like doing like R&B and hip hop, and, you know, it's kind of like the big popular thing in Toronto for the most part. And eventually when I went freelance and I left the studio and I had more free time and all that kind of stuff, I was like, let me like actually like focus on this a bit more. And then kind of was coming up with stuff I was like really excited about and felt proud of, and just put it out. I was like, let me just put it in the world and see what happens. So
did you feel like you had to like perform at the beginning because that's what the popular sound was, or did you still want to do what you wanted to do?
I think so, but I do think it was like conforming. I mean, you're like obviously like influenced by the people around you, and when you see like everyone coming in, it's like, you know, the first like 4 years of my career, obviously I was doing a lot of different stuff, but I was doing a lot of like just late night hip hop sessions. Like I'd be at the studio from like 6 p.m. until like 10 a.m. a lot of nights. And so it obviously just has like an effect on you. It's like, oh, let me like try this stuff and that stuff. But I think that was like why I came back to that, because like
Throw a quick brick into this. 2 mics are picking shit up, so let's do that. Let's do that audio check. All right, sick. Okay, back to it. Yeah, so you started. You were. I'm back, and yeah. So you started engineering first instead of producing.
yeah.
Pure conjecture, but like, yo, stop pulling that mic, bro. Fucking kill.
I'm trying to
all
move
of
it away from us so it's not an earshot, dude. What are you talking about?
It's muted. Just put it back down. You're pulling the whole thing. Put it down. Put it down. Put it down. Put it down.
You're doing too much, man.
No one listens to me, man. Goddamn executive over here. Okay, now we're back. All right, so you started with engineering, you started producing. What do you think? Anything different come out of that? Are you overly critical right off the rip when you're making shit?
Maybe. I mean, I really haven't like thought about that too much, but it is an interesting like idea. I feel like maybe I'm like a little more like, well, I guess a lot of producers are like a little more focused on like the music, I guess, at the beginning, because they're focused on how to make their like shit sound the best. Whereas like, I guess if you start with engineering, it's like a lot of technical stuff, but also just like how do you make it sound good in like a sonics kind of way.
Yeah, you gotta like get out of your own way sometimes.
Yeah, literally.
Switch brains. You gotta code switch like as you're working.
But I think both go like really well into each other, obviously. But I do think like starting engineering and then going into like more production stuff, it was like I didn't have to think about anything technical,
Right.
like in any way.
Yeah.
So it was like
It's like second nature a little bit.
literally.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like,
That's nice.
yeah, it was like kind of like, I don't want to say an easy kind of go into it, but it was like, it didn't feel like I was like figuring out a DAW or like figuring out like
Sure.
how things should sound. I kind of knew how like things should sound already, and
Yeah.
kind of knew what I wanted to. So it's kind of more just like actually just playing with sounds and playing with like different samples and
Right.
VSTs or whatever you're recording or whatever you're doing. So it was a little more like almost like getting out of your way, where like you can kind of let the creative mind just kind of like go free.
Sure. Yeah. That's definitely probably my biggest struggle. I spend most of my time like post-production
Yeah.
and like making shit. Sometimes I think I've gotten over it now, but the hump for the first 6 months was just like, fuck, like I'm engineering this as I'm making it.
Yeah.
And obviously as you do that, you start to fill up the space that you would otherwise use to make the record. It's like it's already loud, it's already full. Like how can I add anything to something?
Just make it as loud as possible, man. Crank everything.
Okay.
No.
You heard that enough?
You better be hearing like -2 LUFS, you know, that shit better be cranked.
That's literally where these guys keep trying to get me to push to. I don't think I've gotten anything successfully past like -7.
Dance stuff was pretty loud.
-7,
Dude,
-6.
clipping. Clipping's like the big thing.
Yeah.
Started like throwing like clips on like clippers on all my buses for like
4
everything.
clippers on my master chain now.
Dude, it's that's how you get like -4, -3 and shit.
That's not enough
soft clipper.
Yeah.
I have soft clipper, hard clipper, distortion limiter. And it's like a soft distortion just over the top just to take care of any peaking harmonics.
Yeah.
That's it. And then like I have to distort that much to get it that loud. It's fucked.
And saturation, you know, like soft saturation. It's like throwing everything. It just makes everything sound huge.
Yeah.
And, you know.
While we're on the topic, okay, so maybe different context. Engineering days, favorite plugins, not instruments. Production days, favorite plugins, not instruments.
Okay. Favorite plugins recording wise, I guess all of engineering, but I did a lot of recording.
Sure.
So I'll kind of focus on that. But like SSL channel strips, like the Brainworks stuff, 4000G, 4000E, and also the 9000J is like really nice too.
What's the J? I don't think I know the J.
The J is just like, it came out later and it's like a bit cleaner.
Okay.
I know Dr. Dre was like big on using like the 9000J, whereas like a lot of like the rock guys and stuff would use like the 4000s.
Right.
But it's not like super nice just having like a channel strip where like have your filters at the top, you know, you got your compressor, you got your EQ, and like kind of have everything in like one plugin. So especially when you're like tracking, it's like not pulling up a ton of stuff at once. It's like, oh, I need to go in here, do this.
So you're tracking and feeding it right back to monitors too?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, most of the time I do tracking, like unless I'm doing like a band or something, I'll just kind of send out like the 2 mix. Sometimes they like you'll get artists sometimes it's like, oh, I don't want to hear my voice while I'm tracking. It's like send out the cue, you know, like give them basically just the track and only you're hearing the what they're recording at the time.
Yeah.
But like 90% of the time, dude, it's like just send like mix as it's going and like, you know, your engineering is going to sound good and like getting better as you're recording it. You know, you're just adjusting little things and like the artist like kind of reacts to that too, where it's like, you know, you kind of get like a performance out of them and like even better for performances when they're like vibing with it. They think they sound good, you know, they're like, they're vibing and shit, good. You know? But yeah, definitely like SSL stuff, Brainworks. I'm big on like the plugin alliance stuff.
Yeah.
The Purple 77, which is like a 76 clone, great sounding, 1176.
77, okay.
But also like Pro Q. It's usually like first thing in my chain.
Bro, my fab filter obsession is unhealthy.
Oh man. And like
get 90% of my work done.
I'm like so big on like the dynamic EQ in it. Where like
and
a lot of times just like taking stuff out. Like a lot of like if I'm doing vocals and stuff, it's like 400, like 800.
Yeah.
You know,
I usually don't want stuff. You usually just like I usually find myself not wanting to fully cut out the boxy shit. I usually just end up slapping it.
Yeah.
And that works really nicely. It sounds way more natural than cutting it out.
Definitely. Cause then like sometimes we'll like lose a little bit of like body to the voice.
Yeah.
It's like you still want to take out some of that like kind of like weird boxiness and like
it's also all the phasing issues with just hard cutting and shit.
Yeah, literally. And like honestly, like you shouldn't be like doing like a crazy amount if you're using like really nice mics and like the right gear and like the right mic for the right person. It's like a lot of times you're only doing like a couple dB at a time.
Yeah.
But then like, you know, sometimes I get stuff and it's like, you know, record on like a 57 or like a you know, like whatever mic, you know, cheap condenser or whatever. It's like, yeah, you got to do a little bit more and like you get there. But like, you know, I was kind of like spoiled, honestly, like working at Noble for a long time where like.
Is that where you started? That was your first?
That was my, I started as an intern.
Some pedigree right there. Yeah.
And I know, started like the nicest studio in Toronto, basically.
I was there for 8 years and
God.
It was sick, man. Like I got to work on a lot of dope stuff and I got to also just like learn so much about like the industry and engineering, but also from like a old school standpoint, but with like a new school twist on it, if that makes sense. Where like I would have a lot of like old school engineers that would come in and like I would work with and I get to learn like all these like secrets they've known for like 40, 50 years working in the industry.
Sure. Yeah.
But then also get like, you know, the new like big producers coming in like Metro Boomin or like Elangelo or like whoever, T minus, and get to learn like these new school kind of things that are like you know, maybe a little more modern and like, you know, I don't even know how to put it, but like you kind of mix those two worlds and like you kind of get the best of both. Where like you kind of have to just like get a wide range.
For sure. Yeah, there's definitely something to it. I mean, it's a whole industry for a reason.
Yeah.
It's not propped up on nothing. Okay, so channel strips for recording. So what else is in there now that you're producing?
Production. I mean, I'm using honestly a lot of it is like stock Ableton.
Yeah, the Ableton stock stuff is fantastic.
It's so
we were
good.
just talking about Max about that. He's like the
thematic stuff is beautiful.
And it's just so low on like CPU where it's like, you know, sessions start getting bigger and stuff. It's like, kind of watches like run well. Like I hate freezing tracks, man. And like, just want to be able to like pop over to anything.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know if you guys are on 12 yet, but Roar, like the new, like,
no, I haven't touched
it's basically like a distortion, but a saturator and like the same plugin.
It's a stock plugin?
Stock plugin. And like you can feed it back on itself and like do filters and shit like that. And like you can get some like wild sounding stuff where like even you have like a sine wave or something. Yeah. And you can like turn it later in like, and like growls and stuff and like wubs and whatever you want, like that sort of world, or even like crazy synth leads and stuff. Yeah. A lot of saturator, man. Like I have basically like
what's your saturation of choice?
I go for the soft sine on the saturator, like the built-in one. Yeah. And then always turn on like the soft clip as well. Sometimes if I'm trying to get like gnarlier sounds, I'll go for like something a little bit more intense, like a diode or something like that, or like hard saturation. But I find on like buses and stuff, I'm really just trying to get like volume and like, you know, like that width and kind of like in your face, kind of like slamming basically like the dynamics of it. Okay. Like the soft clippers, like really, or the soft sign's really nice because like just kind of like fills up everything. Yeah. But then also like, you know, like even just like the stock EQ and the stock compressor, like basically like on my like template and shit, when I like open up like a session or like I open up even like make a new track, it's like kind of have like the tuner there, EQ, compressor, utility, dude. Like I use utility like for everything. It's like so clutch. Yeah. Automation stuff. But like kind of just have that all ready. So like if I'm like trying to dive into an idea and not like thinking about like, oh, I gotta grab this, I gotta grab that, and like go diving into folders and shit. It's like I just want everything like right there, like make things as easy as possible for yourself. So it's like ideas just like flow.
Yeah. Do you find that kind of like limiting sometimes as well though?
It can be. Yeah, definitely. And I think there's also like, you know, if you kind of start with a blank slate, it's like everything's an option at that point. Right. But if you're kind of like setting yourself up as like, oh, these are the things I like go to all the time. Yeah. It's like you're kind of putting yourself in a box a little bit too. But at the same time, it's like
you have to a little bit.
I think it's
anything done.
It's like a trade-off, right? Like part of it's familiarity, but also like you got to experiment too. Like what's the point of like being creative without experimenting on stuff?
What about like creative effects?
I've been big on the Arturia stuff.
Really?
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. Like I got like, I tried, there was a point where I was like super into like just grabbing like every plugin. Yeah. And I found I got to a point where I was like, okay, there's just like too much shit. Yeah. And then you start like trimming back on stuff. Sure.
It's the same thing that we just talked about, like being in a box is like not necessarily a bad thing. You have your go-to things that you know work for you. So
and then, because also too, like you might get like lost in a plugin. You know, it's like you're looking for ideas, and it's like maybe you're finding like some cool stuff, and it's like crazy and stuff. It's like maybe not what you're looking for. It's like, oh, now like not it's about time, but like I spent the last like 45 minutes like flipping through presets on like Portal. You know, and like I just made this like sound crazy, but it's not really like fitting into this.
For sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. I was going to pivot a little bit. So if you still want to talk about plugins,
yeah.
No, all right. We'll come back to this. Let
me throw a couple into the ring here. Maybe
if you want to have a hot plugin debate.
No, I mean the stuff I'm really regularly going back to now is like standard clip, shit ton of standard clip, shit ton of Fab Filter stuff. I've been using Transit a lot, surprisingly. Transit's pretty cool. Baby audios.
Yeah, that's like the it's like for like transitions and stuff like between
surprisingly quick to get the job done. If I just need to crank an idea out.
I have a couple Baby audio plugins. They're pretty sick, and they're
so dope.
What I like about them too is like they're very straightforward and you get good sounds quick.
Crystalline, their reverb is
sick.
Gorgeous.
Also their There's one called I Heart New York, which is like
I think I've
a
seen
parallel
that.
compression. I think it's like one of their first ones.
Yeah.
But like, yo, you throw that on an 808,
Yeah.
and just like they got the spank knob on it,
Spank knob.
and it
like
literally does exactly what it says,
UH
dude. It,
sausage
like,
Really?
finder, bro.
it literally smacks
Sausage
so
Finder
hard.
is my fucking go-to. Man.
Yo,
Put sausage.
Switch over to this.
Is it better than Sausage Finder? That's all I
I
need
think
to
so.
know.
Sausage Fashioner, I've noticed, introduces a lot of like low mid harmonics that I always end up having to duck
The
out.
EQ out. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's context. Like I said,
Yeah,
if you want that in there or not. But
Was it Data Life?
Data Life,
Data
dude.
Life,
Shout out
yeah,
Data
yeah.
Life.
and there's Endless Smile too. That's the other
Endless
one.
Dude,
Smile.
I
Yeah.
love
Infected
that
Mushroom
plugin,
makes some
man.
crazy shit too.
EDM shit, man. Like,
Manipulator. If you've ever heard that, or Infected
Yeah.
Mushroom,
yeah, I've seen it before. I haven't used it.
I have it on trial. It's pretty sick.
But like going back to like
So many
the
great
shit I was
ones.
saying before about like kind of like reducing down plugins. I feel like another part of that too is like kind of like sticking to like a couple companies
Yeah, for sure.
and like staying in that ecosystem,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
then otherwise like
I'm stuck. I've picked my few now. I think at this
Sound
point.
Toys is definitely in there for me.
100%,
Not
dude.
touching too much sound toys.
Really?
Yeah, I-
Man,
Back to Act,
I have a lot of
Decapitator.
problems
love
with sound toy
sound
stuff.
toys, man.
Same. I think they're all just really, really
Like
all of
solid.
them?
Echo Boy, like even
Echo
do
Boy's great.
tracking and stuff. Like,
I find Decap problematic most of the time.
Really?
Yeah, Little Alter Boy fucks so much shit
I
up.
love Little
I feel like
Alter
there's
Boy.
way better ways to achieve that
I think
effect.
Little Alter Boy has become effect in and of itself.
It is, but
It's-
I
you
always end up
recognize it
having
when you
to
hear it.
parallel the vocal if someone Little Alter Boys their shit. I always end up
Oh,
having to
you have to get
parallel
the
it.
right
dude, I'm like
vocal
kind of
take.
obsessed with sound. Like for me, it's like plugin alliance, sound toys, Fab Filter. Honestly, this is the majority of it. I got a little bit of UADX stuff,
Yeah,
but I kind of like at the beginning was staying a lot away from like UAD because I didn't want to have to like bring around
the hardware. Yeah,
the hardware. It's like I try to
Yeah.
open up my laptop and it's like, oh, you can't like open
Yeah,
up this
yeah.
That's
plugin and
fair.
shit. And I found like the plugin alliance stuff was like just as good emulations.
yeah.
And just like low CPU, you know, like you can track through.
Yeah,
them and
you're all
stuff.
about saving CPU.
Dude, honestly, man,
Yeah,
I
bro.
feel
If
like-
you're doing electronic music, bro. That shit
I can
blows
imagine
up.
But
that.
also
Yeah.
even like recording, because like eventually you start getting like big sessions or like, you know, when you got an artist there and stuff,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah,
like
you
the
don't want the shit
last
to
thing they
lag.
want is like, you know, like a freeze or like a crash or like
Right.
start hearing latency and stuff. So like
yeah.
in Pro Tools at least, I'm always hitting like Command 2, checking the session. I'm like,
For
how,
sure,
many,
dude.
how many samples am I behind? Like,
Yeah.
how big is my fucking buffer here?
Yeah,
You're there with Drake and the project just like crashes. And it's like, yo, fuck. We lost
That's
all
literally
the
like, this is like your worst nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay,
Yeah.
I have a question. It's for someone who's like an engineer last. Okay, like I fucking hate engineering. That's neither here nor there. There's a hot debate online. How fast should an artist send notes back to an engineer? And honestly, I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, but I'm curious to hear
I
from
have a
both
right
of you.
answer.
That's interesting. I've actually never heard that before.
Next
No?
day, bro.
I think as soon as possible is the
Yeah,
best. 'cause,
next
like,
day.
Yeah,
Yeah, next.
next day.
Like I do think people should think about it. Like don't like listen to it more than once for
sure.
sure.
Yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
like you can't like listen to it once and be like, oh, I want this, I want this.
Yeah,
But like listen to it a couple times, sit on it for a bit, listen to it again later that night. But like I also find is like if I'm doing like mix notes or you know we're going back and record or whatever, it's like sooner I get your ideas on it, I can kind of like process that as well and like figure out, you know, because like some people like, especially like, you know, you're working with artists or producers and whoever, or even like management. It's like they might not know all like the technical terms
Yeah,
or like exactly what they want, but they have a feeling. Obviously, like they know
Sure.
music.
yeah.
So it's like you kind of have to also like get that note and try and a lot of it's straightforward, but a lot of it like you're kind of interpreting as well.
Yeah. Do you like when I send notes? I know the terms, but I almost prefer to use non-technical terminology because
Yeah.
I feel like you probably know the solution better than I do. Like if I say I want this to be more upfront, you probably know how to tackle that problem. Like I could give you sort of a technical, what I think the technical solution is, but you probably know better than I do.
Which I think is like
So-
perfect and what notes should be is like it should be more about what you want as the vibe of it rather than like
right.
trying to like, you know, that's kind of what like the engineer's there for. It's like the artist, the management, producers, whoever, writers, whoever's on that session, they're trying to like make something, create something, and like they have a vibe. And it's like your kind of job as an engineer is like capture that and make it sound exactly what they're thinking and try and like interpret what they're thinking.
well, the less politically correct answer is definitely fucking.
yeah.
better be
So
next
hold
day,
on.
bro.
Why? So if I send you notes within 15 minutes, you're like, fuck this guy. These
No,
notes
that's
are
fine.
invalid.
That's fine.
You said 24 hours.
I'm trusting. Well, look, I mean, I'm not a professional, but like, I'm trusting that like
why
you
not?
care about your shit enough to actually listen to it
Yeah,
and
fair
send me
enough.
notes back. Also,
Yeah.
like, yeah, we're not doing any of this shit as favors, or like we're not getting paid to do it. So if you're sending me shit, I'm trusting that you're like using the time well. But I hate when that shit takes more than
Yeah.
like 2 days, because that's like I've lost context. I've worked on 4 projects in between.
Yeah.
Like,
It also kind of like makes you like, there's like this weird, like, makes you kind of second guess yourself, like, oh, they don't fuck with it at all. Like,
yeah, like,
there's like,
yeah,
you know?
it's worth keeping that shit in mind for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. People are definitely fallible. Yeah, I hate waiting long time for shit. Even like edits on videos and shit. Yeah, I hate that shit.
I do also find that like most producers I've like worked with, like, generally have like a good ear for like stuff sounds pretty good when it comes in.
Yeah.
Cause like
Yeah,
a lot of that too is like sample selection, especially in like R&B
100%.
world, hip hop,
Yeah, yeah.
pop. It's like kind of starts with what they're hearing. It's like a lot of those samples are already kind of like mixed. They're loud as hell already. And like,
Yeah.
so a lot of it's just kind of like, oh, just make it like blend into itself a little bit
Sure.
better. And like,
For sure.
you know,
Yeah.
you're not doing a whole lot when it comes to like stuff like that. It's, you know, fine with like bands and stuff. And if it's like done really properly, like it's a little bit smoother sailing. But,
Yeah.
you know, like you get like a track that's like recording in a garage or something, or, you know, which is like dope. It's like you're capturing a vibe, but there is like a lot of like, you know, you're working for it in a sense.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So
That does make sense.
now that you're producing, well, you're producing a lot of electronic stuff, but like, where's that coming from? Where's the initial inception for that?
Well, I mean, like, I guess like my introduction into like electronic music was like, you know, a lot of like 90s house classics and stuff like that, but like kind of got really heavy into it, and like, you know, that Skrillex wave early on, and then like, you know, Avicii and even like Kygo, and like a lot of that kind of wave in like that like early 2010s era.
That'd even be like, oh, I guess they're all different. Yeah. fair
Like
enough.
Skrillex would be like, I guess like 2010, 2011, and then like
Early dubstep in that
early
area.
dubstep, and then like Avicii's probably like 2012 and like 2013, and a little bit later on, like you had that like kind of like tropical house wave with like Kygo, and
Yeah.
kind of just like kept changing over time. Like I would say high school is really where I got into it, and I think a lot of that too was like I had a lot of friends that were like super into it as well, and it wasn't until like probably like once I got out of high school, I started going to like my first like shows and raves and stuff like that. And, you know, we're going to like Block Party in London, and, you know, we would drive out of like London to go to Toronto and go to Veld and stuff like that. And had like my like core group of like really good friends from high school. And it was like, you know, like literally having like the best time of my life. And I was like, oh, I just love this shit. And I was like already engineering at the time. And had been like engineering since I was like 16. But I was like, oh, like I love this shit. Like, let me just like, how do you make this? Like, how do I figure this out? Like, I would love to like, I was just so obsessed with the world at that time where it was like, let me try and figure out how I can like, you know, imitate this or like do the same thing. Or like, you know, it's like kids seeing like, you know, bands perform and you see like the guitarist on stage, like, oh, I want to like be like that and shit. Like, I want to, you know, you think they're cool and like all that kind of shit. So yeah, I just kind of like dove in deeper over time. And then like, you know, I think like moving here also like, especially in the first year, had like kind of like inspired me. I was like entering at the studio and like felt like I was kind of like really on this like path now of like, oh, like I'm building a career in like music, and like wasn't getting paid for like the first like 10 months of my internship, but like, you know, was like loving it. I was going to like friends' houses and like they'd be recording like vocals for something, and I'd be like on my laptop like making electronic stuff, like kind of going back and forth between like trap and like electronic trap and like, you know, house and like heavier house and like bass house and all these different kind of things. And then it always kind of like stuck with me too, where like even while I was at the studio, you know, I like kind of like didn't focus on as much, but it would be like every like couple months, you know, it's like, oh, let me go back and like make a house tune. Let me make like some like kind of crazier like sample electronic stuff. Maybe it's like a hip hop beat, but like it's got like some like, you know, those like hints of like EDM music in it. And I think it was like, you know, when I left, since like I had free time again, it's like making more money doing freelance, and it's like kind of can offset that where like, oh, I'm not working like 60, 70 hours a week anymore. I can like, you know, spend time to actually like work on tracks and stuff. I was like, let me like really like, it was almost like I missed it, and I was like missing a part of like what really got me into music at the beginning. And it felt like it was almost like a long overdue thing. So, because I like put out tracks like back in like 2017 when I like first got here, and they're like, you know, private on SoundCloud now, and like it's kind of like dope to look back at them now. And I'm like, oh my god, like seeing how much better you get over like 7 years, and like the progress of it all.
Of course.
So, but yeah, it's been like, I don't know. I felt like it was like a natural progression and just like very, it felt right, you know?
So what's kind of taking up the listing space these days? Because I mean, a lot of the artists you named are now technically legacy acts.
Yeah, it's kind of all over the place, dude. Like, a lot of Abstract. Knock 2 is like my favorite artist right now. I literally just got tickets to see him at History.
Yeah.
Which I'm like so stoked on. ISOXO. Like literally one of my favorite projects out right now is like the Knock 2 ISOXO collab album, Forever.
Yeah.
And it's just like this crazy blend of like heavy bass house music with like trap, but also like some like Jersey club in there and like that kind of like 90s style like trance stuff. I'm like, it's just all over the place, which I love. It's like you hear all their influences, which I think is like incredible in dance music. And I kind of compare that also to like Skrillex as well, where it's like he kind of had his sound, but then as time went on, like he evolved. It's like you kind of heard like every influence he had. It's like it's like bringing on like grime rappers from like the UK and like, you know, a bunch of Jamaican artists and, you know, just stuff from everywhere, like Indian artists, where it's like that one song Xenoff, his like newest album, where it's got like the heavy tribal drums and like all that kind of shit. It's like it's so like cool to see just like where the influence is from like everywhere in someone's life. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's very all over the place, man. Like,
yeah, of course. I mean,
a lot of electronic music. I dive a lot into just like Discover Weekly, where I'm just like, show me everything. A lot of 4B. I've been really into 4B lately. Yeah, a lot of shit. It's weird when you have to like talk on the top of your head. Just like,
just name off.
That's fair. That's fair.
It's like, who do I even listen to?
Let me check my Spotify really quick.
Yeah, I mean, it changes week over week. Who the fuck knows?
It's always changing.
Those are your big consistent listens. Have you gotten into any like resurgence house, like the stuff that's coming back that's like very like it's speed garage is like a big one right now that's been popping off again?
Not really, not like speed garage, but like a little bit of like that UK garage wave where it's like humdy, where it's a little bit like more like bass heavy and shit.
Sure. I
do fuck with it. It's sick. And I'm kind of happy that like a lot of that shit's kind of come back.
Yeah.
Like
I feel like electronics, like the scene's opened up.
Literally.
It's not just like big artists now. It's like there's room for so many more people now.
And I've noticed like that a lot too, and like going to shows and stuff. It's like you see a lot of just like different stuff being played. I've also been noticing a lot of like disco being played again, which I love. Damn. Because at Standard Time the other night, and like it was like full on house or disco night, but also like kind of like disco house. And the vibe was like amazing, where it's just like feel good music, and everyone's having a good time. Like, and I'm stoked to see that, because I do feel like, and I don't want to like single out like genres and stuff, but dude, it did feel like for at least like that like 2015 to like 2021 era, it was like trap was like the biggest thing. It was like you go to anywhere and you're just hearing trap.
Yeah, for sure.
And I feel like, you know, still obviously huge, but I feel like it kind of like had that little like settle down, like, you know, like, you know, it was so new. I don't want to say new, but it had like that huge surgence, and then kind of like, you know, people were like, okay, we got used to this, like we vibe with it, and like it's not going anywhere. There's still like obviously amazing trap music being made, but I feel like with that not being like so just heavily present, it's like a lot of other stuff just kind of comes up as well.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I feel like as like an outsider personally, I would consider myself an outsider to like EDM music. That's how I always kind of boxed in the genre. It was like the trap, and then it was like the anthem, like riser fucking drop,
big
like,
room house kind of. Yeah,
like, that was kind of how I
never really got into big room. Yeah,
I was never a big room guy.
But to me, that was kind of always like I guess the facade of what EDM was. And now over the last year, like obviously like Rails put me onto a lot of stuff, but I've noticed like how vast and like how malleable the genre is.
Yeah,
like there's so many different subgenres within the genres, and it's like you can really add in whatever you want.
Dude, it's wild.
What do you reach for when you like start to sort of mix in different influences?
I don't know if it's like, I don't even know if I'm like conscious about it. Like it's kind of like, I feel it's just like a vibe of what you're creating and like doing and working on. It's like the way I've like also like set up my sample libraries, like kind of having like general genres, but it's set up so it's like a hard electronic kind of like folder, and then it's like going to kicks, and it's like 300 400 kicks, and I just go through down like all of them. It's like whatever kind of like feels cool and like rocks with like the track. It's like kind of just throw that in, like kind of try not to have like too much thought of like I'm making like this type of track.
You're
Have
not trying to be
this
intentional.
influence, and like I feel like I try and like put that into some of my shit where it's like have like heavy kind of like bass house kind of like vibe for half the song, and it's like like second break it like kind of breaks into like a trap drum beat, and then like goes in like a Jersey club kind of like kick, and it's like
Why not?
just kind of like change it up, like whatever's like kind of interesting to me, like wherever the influence is, it's like whatever I'm feeling that day or even listening to, it's like let me just fucking like put that in.
You got into any like psytrance or like tech trance?
Some of it, yeah. Not like
Psytex.
super heavy, but like
Yeah,
some of it's like super sick.
so dope.
There's a track by like Yellow Cloud, who's like one of my favorite like EDM artists. And they're generally like an EDM trap kind of like
Yeah,
duo, but they did this like one project where they had this like crazy psytrance song on it, and it just goes like so crazy hard. And then there's also this other one by like Flostradamus and Boombox Cartel,
yeah,
literally called ID, which I think is fucking hilarious.
yeah.
Has like this crazy like trap drop in like the first drop, and then second drop just goes in like this like crazy switch up in like psytrance,
Yeah.
which is like that's what I fuck with, where it's just like when you have like those crazy switch ups where you're not expecting, I'm like, oh, love that. It's like just keep them guessing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, been super heavy into psytrance recently, so it's been
Yeah.
like a big hard tech psytrance. Been a big thing for me recently. We'll see. I think it's still picking up.
Yeah, I honestly like techno's been like kind of a thing I've been kind of getting into lately, where like
It's been getting more interesting, truthfully.
I was never
recently.
like a big techno person, but one of my homies that I've been like DJing with, he like last like year or two really got into techno, and so like he'll throw on some tracks and stuff, and like I'm like, oh fuck, like actually like
Yeah,
I fuck with this. And then like even going to like pep rally the other night, like a lot of that stuff is like usually just like straight techno, very like industrial heavy, like screeches and that kind of stuff. And like I'm like, oh, I'm like
Cars.
into this. And
Yeah.
I always thought like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm just like a house person, like that's my thing. But
sure.
I found, especially over like the last couple of years, more so, like it's really expanded like a lot of different stuff.
Got a
Like-
sick industrial scene here too, though. So it's like it really helps to be here for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dope.
Curious, like how does like, because I feel like in other genres, when there's like a subgenre that's becoming popular or like starting to get a wave, it's usually like there's a single artist who makes that music really, really well,
Yeah.
and everyone's like, okay, there's a scene for this now.
Yeah.
EDM doesn't seem to operate the same way. It's like it seems more sort of like spread out, I'll say.
I don't know if we're privy to all the inner workings of it, because it's one thing that uniquely doesn't live in North America alone. It doesn't grow here as quickly as
Yeah.
as
It kind of
does
trickles
elsewhere.
down to here. You're saying?
I'm not saying it trickles down, but it has another audience to grow that doesn't have anything to do with this side of the world.
You talking about like Europe and stuff? Because I know like
Yeah, like even just like East Asia.
Yeah.
It's such a huge scene for it.
It's actually pretty crazy when I like think about that stuff, because like at least like our like bar culture, going out culture here is like everything kind of like for the most part stops at like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m.
Yeah,
But then you go like to a lot of other parts of the world, it's like there's no last call, there's no like end of the club,
Yeah,
like kind of
yeah.
goes all the time, and like
You're
you
at
know.
home? What the fuck?
Yeah, literally.
The hell?
So that's why I'm like I get super stoked about like a lot of like the underground stuff that goes on in this city,
Yeah.
where it's like
Yeah.
thrown by people, very DIY, like kind of like the ethos of like what an actual rave is, not just like
Yeah.
a concert or something.
Yeah,
Totally.
And it's like, oh, this shit's going till like 7 a.m., 8 a.m. Like
yeah. When it
whenever
says
people
late,
like,
it means late. Yeah,
yeah.
for
Yeah,
real.
It's like
it
when
means the
people
next
feel like
day.
leaving.
Yeah,
And to me, that's like, it's like punk in like the 90s and shit.
Yeah.
It's like,
Mm.
we had a Kerry Chandler set like 2 years ago. That shit went. He played a 7-hour set alone.
dude,
Fucking crazy.
I have so much respect for those DJs that can play like 7-hour sets.
Unreal. He had a tape machine. He was playing some loops like pure analog just for the shit of it. For
Why
no
not?
other
That's
reason.
wild.
Why not?
Unreal.
The respect for like DJs that are like also producing on stage, or using like, you know,
This thing. Yeah, yeah.
Analog gear and
Synths
shit.
and,
It's
like, you
crazy.
know, like-
yeah.
rhythm machines, whatever it is, like a Zoffelstein and people
Yeah.
like that. It's like, yo,
Oh, yeah.
that's like
That's
next level
crazy.
shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you DJing as well? Are you like doing a circuit? Or?
I just started picking up DJing like 2 months ago.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
So I feel like also too, like with the engineering before producing, I feel like also a lot of people too like start DJing before producing,
Sure.
and that's how they got
Yeah.
into it. And I was like kind of the opposite, where I was like, I guess I'm just like a technical person,
Sure.
and I'm usually like behind the scenes, that kind of stuff. So I was very like, just want to make tracks, record stuff. And it took me a while to like, I'm actually like, I want to DJ. I want to like be out there, like play some
Yeah.
shows and shit.
Yeah.
So literally like 2-3 months ago, like just start DJing. And I was like, got pretty obsessed with it like early on. And then I have a homie that I worked with, Mike, and he's been DJing for like probably like 10 years, maybe longer than that.
Yeah.
And so like literally like some of the most fun I've had in music in like years has been like going over his place, set up my controller, my DDJ 1000,
Yeah.
sets up his XDJs on the side. We have 4 decks going.
Sick.
We'll just do like a back-to-back thing. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, I think I saw your story the other day.
dude,
Yeah,
it's so much fun, man. Like,
Nice.
Wait, how
set
does that
drinks
work?
going.
Both of you guys go at, like spinning at the same time? Is it like you do a track, I do a track?
Literally. And it's like, oh, like you got the next 3 tracks, or like, it's like, oh, dude, take over. Like, you just kind
Yeah.
of like go with the flow. And it's like,
There's a set of 2000s in there right now. It's a good place to
Dude.
record.
Bring the USB, man.
Yeah.
you know Stellar, right? On like Parkdale area. It's like next to BB's. It's like that practice space. It's Stellar
I don't
Sound.
think so.
They have like 2 rooms with just like a set of 3000s and I think it's next to and then whatever, just like an ADJ 900. Cool place. You can just go in there, practice, record.
So I have to check it out.
Yeah,
'Cause,
it's
like,
it's cheap as hell too. Like $50 for like 3 hours.
that's dope. That's actually,
With Cugi over there.
Yeah, we could do that
yeah.
That would be sick.
next time we shoot.
Well, back to back.
And just
Yeah,
like spin
I'm super
halfway.
down.
Like, fuck it. Yeah.
I got my Flex 10 like a year and a half ago, and I've been going crazy. It lives in my kitchen. Like it never gets packed away.
Yeah, dude, that's how it has to be, man.
All day, every day. Yeah.
Leave it up, you know?
Basically a table at this
Yeah.
point.
I
yeah.
literally sometimes even when I'm looking for records, like actually we should I'll send you my record pool too. Just if
Yeah,
there's
man.
anything you like
Dude,
in there.
100%.
I have a couple friends we co-curate and then we keep our own ones just to keep our styles like ourselves.
Yeah,
Like,
hell yeah.
Yeah. I've just been fucking going crazy and I'll just let shit rip. And if I hear something I like, just get up whatever I'm doing.
That's like the best part of it, right? Is like
Yeah.
throwing tracks between each other and like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
like, what are you into these days? Like, oh, I've been like fucking with this heavy.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like, that's where like a lot of that influence comes from, is like,
Yeah.
it's like you surround yourself with like dope people and listen to like
Yeah.
dope shit. And it's
Yeah.
just like, it all kind of like comes up together. And I
Sure.
feel like that's why you see like a lot of like, either collectives or like groups of people and like shit like that, like
For
come
sure.
up in certain
Yeah.
cities. It's like, oh, these are just like people that like found each other and like really rocked with like what the other person was doing and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
that's like, to me, that's like the beautiful thing about it. And that's like the whole reason to even like get into all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might be late, but it feels like it's been like a resurgence here. Like it feels like there's been some change over the last
Dude, I
couple
feel
years.
it too, man.
That's
I
just like-
100% feel it too.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's also just like a general like the zeitgeist of music is sort of shifting EDM as well? You think it's just that there's just a community here that wants it?
I think it's honestly like, I feel like a lot of things are coming up. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like EDM, like before, like with trap, not like having like a downturn or whatever, but like, kind of had that big wave and it's kind of like
Yeah.
settling back into like where like, genres would kind of like normally sit.
Yeah.
It's kind of like brought everything up, and like EDM and like even seeing like country taking over again. And,
Yeah,
like
we've been
a lot
talking
of like
about that
indie
too.
stuff coming
A lot of
out.
folk
And, like,
music. Yeah.
even
Yeah.
like more like, I don't want to say old school rock, but like classic rock bands, like, like
Yeah.
straight up 4-piece rock band. Like you're seeing a lot more of that stuff too now.
Yeah.
I hope the commercial side grows and adapts and lets this stuff flourish again.
Yeah, and it's also just like
We'll
a
see.
blend of everything too.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
you're just seeing so many more artists that have like just such a blend of like different genres.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, for sure.
Oh, totally
Yeah.
unrelated. We were out to dinner yesterday. There's a family like
What'd you
2
guys
booths
get?
behind us. I was just some whatever.
Oh,
we
like
hit a
chicken
song and then we
wings.
hit
It
St.
wasn't-
Louis.
Yeah, yeah, it was nothing special.
Alright.
Nothing great, but there was a family. We were by the Rogers Center. It was a family that got scammed out of 15 grand for
Jesus.
Taylor Swift
Yeah,
tickets.
Oh my God.
They flew from Vancouver.
Yeah, they bought like 10 tickets,
10
1,500
tickets,
each,
1,500 each.
and they were just like
Oh my god.
That's just crazy.
they were just going through it at
even
St.
like
Louis.
dude, seeing some of their like resales on that shit where it's like
God.
Oh my god,
$50,000 tickets.
Yeah. You
Oh,
man. People
oh
not
my
even
God,
hesitating either. People were just
Yeah,
like,
like,
yeah.
How much you gotta like love an artist to like
I don't know.
go
can't-
drop
I
like
can't imagine
basically like
liking
a new
anyone
car?
that much.
Yeah.
You know,
For real.
you get a
Easy.
car for like 15 grand. So like,
Yeah, I can't think of anyone I like that much
There's no one.
that I would even spend more than like $300 on, to be honest.
yeah,
Yeah, and 300 is starting to get into
Even
like
that's
the
like, yeah,
competitive
it's eating
stuff
into my
around
Uber Eats
here.
budget.
dude, Ticketmaster, man.
Fuck
fucked.
Ticketmaster. man.
Fucked. So fucked.
There was one show that was like pretty expensive that I didn't end up going to, but I wish I had at the time, was Rage Against the Machine.
Oh, like last year, right?
Yeah, man. And like, I still kick myself about that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I missed too many shows that I'm
That's
just
crazy
like,
that Rage Against the Machine is charging 200 plus.
Literally, like, their
It's
whole
so
thing is
ironic.
like anti-capitalism.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Yeah, it's like, all right.
No, like, let's get
That's
the bag.
funny.
Wait, but that seems reasonable though. $200 for
For their legacy now, they're big enough. It
Yeah,
seems
that's-
reasonable for them,
yeah.
but like it's crazy. I tried to go see, you know, Big Thief, Adrian Lenker. She's like the lead.
Yeah.
She's like a singer-songwriter. Fantastic, pretty popular.
Pretty big band. Yeah,
$350 for a ticket.
that's understandable.
Single
wild, man.
one person show.
That's
Dude, even
unreasonable.
like I got tickets to see Knock 2 like up in March at History.
Yeah.
And like that shit sold out instantly. And even when I got like the second like round of whatever like sales and
Yeah,
shit,
yeah.
it was already on like resale and it's like $250 a ticket. And
Yeah.
I was like,
no way.
that's fucking crazy, man. For
That's
like
crazy.
You don't usually see like DJs fetching that much for even like on a resale. I feel
No,
like
yeah, it requires a
unless
certain,
it's a festival or
requires
something.
a certain
Right?
hype cycle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dice is sick. Thank God Dice is starting
Yeah.
to do their thing.
dude, I
That's
honestly just got on Dice like the last like 2 years.
Yeah, it's pretty. I've only seen it recently too.
Yeah. And like it's
Handful
been
of
sick.
Yeah.
A lot of like shows going on like the city have been on Dice.
Yeah.
Like the
Dice.
pep rally shit was on Dice.
I feel like just more and more artists are like willing to go through Dice because they just hate Ticketmaster
Yeah.
and like
Dice, Resident Advisor.
Which I'm here for, dude. Like
yeah, fucking more power to them, man.
Yeah.
I love that shit.
RA is pretty sick too. They've been-
But also like RA's super dope.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also I like when like people give out like actual tickets and shit. Like having like a
Physicals?
ticket stub, dude, it's kind of sick. It's like a little like memento.
Can't even think of the last
Shit.
time
I
I've
haven't
seen
had
a
that in,
ticket
like,
stub. Yeah.
Forever.
Can't think of the last time.
But I still got like my Warp Tour fucking ticket
Yeah.
stubs from like
yeah.
You still got them?
2013,
Mine's,
2014.
mine's in my drawer at home. I still have my Warp Tour stubs too.
What are you gonna do with those?
I don't
Just
know,
gonna-
bro. I'll just show them to somebody.
Pass
who
it down
cares
to your
later.
kids?
I should have
Yeah.
brought them to show him. There you go.
Yeah, true.
How'd you
have to
do
put
at
them
that?
on
Which
tickets.
stage were you at, bro?
Devil
yeah.
Wears Prada. That's what I was waiting for.
Dude, I think I watched them.
Yeah. Fuck. it's
That was
so
like 2014 or some shit.
dope. Yeah, like they were playing Forlorn. They were playing like that third Dead Throne album. It
10
was like
years ago.
after, yeah.
because my one homie, I was like more of a pop punk kid.
Yeah.
During that time, but my one homie was like huge in like metalcore, so it'd kind of be like bouncing around between like stages and shit.
Yeah.
He'd be like, "All right, I'll check out some of your stuff, and I'll check out some of your stuff." And I remember we also saw Issues at one of those Warp tours. I don't know if it was a year after,
It wasn't the year I
um,
went for sure because I would have gone to that.
but it was crazy because like that was when they were like super coming up,
Yeah.
and they're at like one of like the smaller stages, but it was
Yeah.
literally like I remember sitting on like this hill, like kind of watching it from the top, and it was like the biggest crowd I've ever seen at Warp Tour. It was like you look at main stage, there's like couple thousand people in front and then probably like 15,000 people in front of like this small ass stage.
Yeah.
It was like sick to see.
Dope. Yeah. I don't know where I'd get that now. All the hardcore's kind of resurging. Like,
Oh, dude,
because of
definitely.
Hamilton and
Everything's resurging at this point. It's
fucking.
crazy.
Oh, it's so dope. It's a great time.
On Jimmy Kimmel, dude.
Jimmy Kimmel. Who?
Huh?
Knock Loose? On Jimmy
Wild.
Kimmel?
All right, it's official.
That's serious.
I hope they box Jimmy Kimmel, bro. Bring him on stage and just knock him
Dude,
off.
he's got the heaviest scream. I
Yeah.
don't know the name of the singer in Knock Loose, but yeah,
some shit, right?
the breakdowns are wild.
Yeah.
Brian Garrett.
Brian Garris, yeah. Fucking the guttural ones are unreal.
He has like the arf arf sound and shit. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
That's
that's
wild
wild.
on TV,
Arf,
bro.
arf.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my homie, my roommate is literally in a like a new metal band, but honestly to me it's like pretty hardcore.
What's the band?
Clockwise.
No shit.
Dude, they've been killing it. And they're like they're
we're
so
going to see the
sick.
Clockwise show in December.
Yo, let's go. I'll be there.
Let's go.
That's
Yo.
crazy.
I'm so like stoked for those guys
I've
because
been
like
amped on the Clockwise stuff because it's so reminiscent of like old Linkin Park.
dude,
new
literally,
metal. Yeah, yeah.
and like they'll play like they'll play their fucking Limp Bizkit cover of Break Stuff during their set, dude. So they're just like they're legends, man. Like I fuck them so heavy.
What a
There's
small world, you know,
dude.
what the
Wild
fuck?
too. Like I remember like when he came home. This one day, he's like, "Oh, dude, I'm going to like a jam with like these dudes. I'm just gonna like
Yeah,
play
yeah.
drums and like check it out." Like next day, he comes home. He's like, "Oh, dude, like they like want me in the band and like we're gonna like do some practice together." And like next day after, he's like, "Oh, dude, I'm like playing a show this weekend."
Sick.
I'm like, "Oh
Just
shit,
like
that's
that,
wild.
yeah.
That's sick, man."
Perfect.
He's a
So they're
drummer.
like-
He's a drummer.
Drummer, yeah.
Yo, we were talking about how
Mitchie, that's my boy.
we've been talking
Oh,
about how drummers
like
are hard
from
to
Hey
learn
Music?
recently.
Hey Mitch?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
That's my dog.
I met him once in passing, so no way he
Oh,
didn't
dude.
remember me. But yeah, I
Great
remember him way
dude.
back.
Great dude. And then like it was just like I saw like the exponential like
Yeah.
like the rise of it from like the beginning when he's like joined the band and
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
his
yeah.
whole story with that. And then it's like, oh, we're doing an EP. And then,
Sick.
you know, like a couple months later, it's like playing all these shows and like going on
Sick.
tours and shit. And then it's
Yeah,
like,
they-
put out this sick full length record. And
Yeah.
now we're doing the
Wow.
triple release, which I think is like super sick.
Fire.
It's crazy. I wonder, how do you get
Fire.
momentum as like a band nowadays? I think it's like probably a different
There's,
sort of
there's
game.
a scene for it, dude. Hamilton seems like it's going
Yeah.
crazy
It's
for this
Hamilton?
show.
I mean,
Like fucking Teeth that we just checked out the other day. Dan showed me Clockwise, Duflame, and those guys.
yeah, dude. And because they're doing like that triple release at that show with Duflame and Dear Dash God, I think.
Yeah.
Which I'm like super stoked
Be a
on.
crazy show.
Because I think it was, I don't know if it was their EP release show, but it was a show at Toronto Style up on Bloor.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of like divey bar, you know, but it was like literally packed. Like you couldn't move. There must have been like 100 kids in there and just like band at the front, like felt very like, and that's what I love about that shit. Like all the
Yeah.
underground shit. It's like I was talking about like punk and like hardcore and like EDM, like
Yeah.
all like underground shit where it's like you got some warehouse or like some like
It's a make it happen shit. Yeah.
make it
like-
happen,
yeah.
dude.
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
people show up because they
That's
just love it.
So dope. I'm
Yeah.
excited for that.
They like the novelty of sort of just being
Yeah.
in the know and like feeling it out.
Like one of my like favorite memories of like EDM scene here was like literally like right after COVID. A bunch of my friends were like throwing like these underground raves over by the DVP.
Oh,
You
the
walk-
bridge ones.
The bridge ones,
I've
man.
been to a few of those.
Dude, they're sick. And
Yeah.
like to me, that's also like very much in that
Yeah.
ethos of like you're walking down, like you get like a picture of like
yeah.
a map with like a star. It's like walk down here with
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a red line and shit. And
Sick.
you get to like this abandoned bridge, so it just like cuts off and goes into like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
river and shit. And it's just like a set of decks and like couple lights and like a set of speakers.
Sick.
And
That's
like
fucking
goes
dope.
to like 8 a.m. or like whenever people want to leave.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, dude, I love this shit.
Fire. That's dope.
That's very dope.
Sick. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for the next year. I'm gonna get way more involved out here for sure. I'm gonna free up and do more of this shit. That's exciting. Nice.
Sure. I think I learned just before we talked. I learned that you're also from London, and I've
London boys.
never met someone else from London who actually does music, and so I'm curious. 'Cause
Really?
yeah, dude. Like growing up, I've always sort of been into music and done music since like high school, pretty much. But I've never been around anyone in London who like remotely is interested in music or in like the arts even, and like wanting to explore those like areas. Like I wonder if it was the same experience for you. Obviously, we grew up in different parts of London, but
I mean, growing up, like I would have friends that like played instruments and stuff. We'd be like,
yeah.
you know, jam and stuff. But like for the most part, like everyone in my like school would like go to do like, I don't want to say like normal jobs, but you know, like do like, you know, engineering, become a teacher, like
Yeah, yeah.
dentist, you know, all those kind of like,
Yeah.
I guess normal jobs. And then I was like the one where it's like, oh, I'm going to like go to like school, like Fanshawe for like music industry arts. And everyone's like, oh, like cool. Like that's sick. Like how you make,
Oh, you took the engineering course at Fanshawe?
Yeah.
Is that why? Yeah, okay, that makes
so
sense.
I was like, you know, a lot of people be like, oh, how do you make like a career out of that? I was like, I don't know. Like, I just love it. I want to like
Make it
figure out how to
happen, man.
Yeah.
do it. And then there it was like, met a bunch of people who weren't from London, but like came to London for
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
And that kind of like immediately like built a little bit of a network. And then, you know, when I moved to Toronto, like those were some of my first friends in Toronto.
Nice.
And it kind of got me into the scene because I had already a bunch of homies here and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was like honestly a great way for it to happen, even was like, you know, didn't come here without like knowing anyone, you know, like
Yeah.
it can be like pretty daunting thing.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah,
felt
for
like,
sure.
you know, I had kind of like pretty solid group of people like right when I came here and like
Yeah.
kind of could like feel pretty comfortable right away.
You always knew that you had to come to Toronto or at least leave London to pursue
Definitely,
music in
man.
any capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's just like, I also feel like there's, you know, if you grow up in like, and not like London's like a super small town, but like there's not a whole lot of opportunity. And like you kind
There's
of grow up
none.
and it's like, oh, there's like, there's more out there for me than
Yeah,
this,
the
you
big
know?
city. Yeah. For
And
sure.
It's like, you got to come to Toronto, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
that's probably true.
Yeah, I think growing up, like Toronto always felt like the big city. It was like very intimidating. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know if I could ever go there. Like it's
Yeah.
such a scary place. And then the older I got, I was like, no, I have to be in Toronto if I want
Yeah.
any sort of opportunity. But that kind of like, I felt like for me personally, it kind of felt like it stunted my growth because I was like, I didn't leave London until I was like 23.
yeah. I mean, I was 22.
That's
I was
not
like,
that late,
you're
bro.
young.
That is late, man. Because I think,
I don't think I got here until I was like 26.
Damn.
yeah, but I mean, Waterloo's pretty close, right? And I think you
I wasn't
always,
really spending that much time here.
no.
I didn't really have a reason to. I just kind of do my own thing.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I guess it depends what you want to do, right? I think like it took me a while at least to understand like if music or creative pursuits are even like
Yeah.
logical. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if it's even possible to do. Like if you don't see anyone that's doing it or know anyone that's
feels
doing it,
scary. Honestly, it's
yeah,
like
Still
I mean,
does. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
still
doesn't
does.
end.
It still does. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I was kind of also the same way too. Where like I wasn't coming to Toronto much before I moved here, so it's kind of like this like just thing in my mind of like, oh, it's like this big city, like it's opportunity. I imagine it's like same thing for like people in like the States or like New York. It's like even if you haven't been there a lot, it's like
Yeah.
you kind of have this
You know
idea in
that's
your
where you want to be.
head where it's just
Yeah.
like, oh, there's like anything out there, I can like go find it.
Yeah.
And for the most part, like in Toronto, like you have like an idea of like what you want to do or career, like you can go find it or you just make it. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's enough people here and like enough of creative scene. Like to be honest, like if you're in anything creative, especially
Yeah.
like being here or also like Montreal, but like especially here, like it's kind of like the movie you have to make.
For sure.
Yeah.
Cause like, you know, you have to be within it. You know, you can do a lot just trying to like talk to people on the internet and like visiting and stuff. But like, you know, you really have to like put yourself like fully in it,
Yeah.
you know, meet people and like, and it's also like a benefit too. Like you're going to obviously relate to them and like become
Yeah.
good friends with those people. Cause like you're very similar. You relate on the same things and like those will become your people. And like, they'll also like push you and like influence you and inspire you and all that kind of stuff where it's like, oh, like my friend's doing this and it's like so sick and like
Yeah.
they're doing that. It's like, it kind of just pushes you to like do even more and like push yourself and all that kind of stuff. And
Sure.
so that's why I also like, you know, like going back to Mitch, it's like, it's been inspiring watching him like be in that band, like
Yeah.
how well they've done in like the last year and like what they've made and like pushed and like, you know, records doing well and like they're playing shows and like getting a lot of people out. It's like my friends inspire me. It's like,
Yeah.
that's what I just like being around and having those like people around me and, you know, pushing myself.
Absolutely.
Sick. Actually, you know, funny enough, like 4 years ago when I was trying to decide if I wanted to do engineering professionally, you were the guy I messaged. You talked me out
Oh,
of it.
really?
And like a few short messages. I'm like,
A few short messages. Wait, what were the
Damn.
messages, man? You gotta pull them up now.
oh, they probably still exist. Yeah, IG doesn't delete that shit.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
probably still there.
You gotta like print that out and like put it
Nah,
on
dude,
or some
chase
shit,
it.
man.
Chase it.
You didn't say that then.
I was,
You're
you
like,
know,
bro, it's hard.
I was probably just like
Fucking.
beat down by the industry at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nah,
you're
fair
like,
enough.
fuck this
I
shit.
mean,
Wait, how did you guys know each other from before?
long story, off camera story.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Mutual friends who we are no longer friends with.
Yeah.
Individually, no longer friends with.
Long story, off camera
I
story.
don't think anyone's friends
All
with
right.
him.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Just so you know him.
All right, we'll talk about that later. Wait, do I know him?
Yes.
Okay.
Cool. Well, I mean, yeah, I think this is always how the shit goes. We get to like the hour and we're like, fuck, we have infinite shit to talk about.
Yeah,
But,
we can make this
yeah.
these 10-hour episodes.
but yeah, let's go get out there, get some shit done. Come
Hell yeah.
back when we have a bit more work done, and we'll see you at the show. And
Reconvene.
yeah,
Yeah,
December.
exactly. We'll circle back.
Give the
on this.
updates.
Yeah.
We'll be
for
there
sure.
till December. Dan's there too. Even though he's fucking beat down right now, dude just drove 3 hours.
Oh
Just
shit.
went to Kitchener and back just to drop his girlfriend off. Putting that on record for you, buddy.
That's a good
Good for
boyfriend.
you, man. Absolutely.
It's a good boyfriend.
That's craziness. All right, man. Well, thanks for coming out.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Best
No,
friends,
for sure.
friends.
Is there anything you want to plug?
Yeah,
before
plug
we-
anything you got coming up.
EP, Taylor Street, just came out in July.
Yes, sir.
Go listen to it. And then I'll have new music coming out soon. Always working on stuff.
Everything
Oh, yeah.
soon. Let's go.
Soon.
Sooner than later.
Cool. That's
Cool.
what's friends.
Thanks, man.